Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Run the Nation right here, QOT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. We got a great show for you guys today. We got an update to the transgender ban. We've got another update on healthcare. So they're having more votes on healthcare. Also, Eric Cantor coming back into the news and pretty much telling us what we already knew. But it's actually fascinating what kind of admission he actually makes. So that's fun. We also have the real reason the Boy Scouts have not criticized Trump over his... Yes, turn that off. Oh, that is off. Okay. Anyway, I'm just messing around with things. So let's go to our first story. Now, when President Trump tweeted about his intent to ban transgender troops from the military, a lot of us were wondering, well, wait a minute, that came out of nowhere. What's the deal? Why is he trying to ban transgender people from serving in the armed forces? That seems like pretty strange, especially since he never really cared that much about transgender issues. That wasn't something that seemed to have been high up on his radar. And actually, he claimed that he would be a better... he would be much better for the LGBT community than Hillary Clinton would be. So, you know, he was like, oh, so much better for the LGBT. Let me tell you what, I'm going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. Okay, so look, this was rather odd. And it left a lot of us scratching our heads trying to figure out who directed him to it. Well, I actually have an answer for you. Now, before I go on, I do want to note that Trump... Right now, the ban is not in effect. Okay, Trump hasn't even sent an order to Mattis to ban openly transgender people from service. So right now, nothing's changed, but that could change later on. So let me explain where this came from and what happened. All right, now there's an article in Politico that explains exactly how this came into play, and you're not going to be shocked that Donald Trump was actually willing to sell out transgender people in order to get some sort of win on the wall for Mexico. Politico writes, House Republicans were planning to pass a spending bill stacked with some of Trump's different campaign promises, including money to build his border wall with Mexico, of course. But an internal House Republican fight over transgender troops was threatening to blow up the bill, and House GOP insiders feared that they might not have the votes to pass the legislation because certain people, defense hawks, wanted a ban on Pentagon-funded sex reassignment operations, something that the GOP leaders would not give them. So that's interesting. Now, yesterday I speculated that this is simply transphobia. Turns out I was kind of wrong, at least according to this article. Now they're saying a lot of these defense hawks are like, we don't really care if transgender people serve in the military. We don't give a fuck. But we do care about spending money on them. We don't want to spend money on our troops, the people that are actually out there doing the fighting. No, all we want to do is we want to give more money to defense contractors. Because defense contractors, they give us legalized bribes and campaign contributions. So, of course, we're going to defend them. But, again, we're not going to pay for anything that actually helps our soldiers, the people that are actually doing the fighting. And as you're going to find out, a lot of these people were not actually in favor of the ban. Very interesting. Now, before we get into that, though, I want to thank, I guess I want to give credit to some of the GOP leaders, right? And now that includes John McCain, right? John McCain, he railed against the ban. And a lot of these leaders are like, no, this is dumb. Why would we do that? If anybody wants to fight in our all-voluntary military force, well, okay. Why are we preventing them from fighting? It's pretty dumb. And as far as the Joint Chiefs are concerned, well, remember yesterday I was like, either Donald Trump was he was lying about talking to the generals and the Joint Chiefs and all that, or, you know, or they had come to an about face, because beforehand they're like, no, we're not in favor of this policy. We're not in favor of banning transgender people. It's ridiculous. Well, it turns out the Joint Chiefs were exactly that. They were not in favor, and they were actually blindsided by this entire thing. They had no idea what was going on. So, and of course, later on, they came out against it. So with all these other people against it, here comes Donald Trump. These so-called defense hawks that don't want to spend any money on our troops, that happen to be transgender, and look, probably are a little bit transphobic, let's be honest. They turned to Donald Trump. Now, Politico writes, Trump's sudden decision was in part a last-ditch attempt to save a House proposal full of campaign promises that was on the verge of defeat, according to numerous congressional White House sources. So they turn to Trump and they say, hey, man, look, you got all this stuff in this bill. We want to pass it. Don't you want to get the wall funding for the wall to Mexico? Don't you want to get all these other goodies that we packed in here for you? Your campaign promises? Well, you got to help us out by making sure that we ban transgender soldiers from getting funding for sex reassignment surgeries. Not ban them from the military altogether, but just to make sure that they don't get any money for their sex reassignment surgeries. So that's what that entire thing is about. Okay. So now Trump, well, I'll get to what Trump actually does later and how these insiders describe it. But first, numerous House conservatives and defense hawks, according to Politico, this week had threatened to derail their own legislation if it did not include a prohibition on Pentagon funding for gender reassignment surgeries, which they, of course, deem a waste of taxpayer money. Now, look, laugh along with me, okay? A waste of money. You want to talk about a waste of money? No, the Pentagon, they love to waste money. Look, let me give you an example here. We spend more on boner pills, erectile dysfunction medication, than we do on transgender sex reassignment surgeries. 5 times more on boner pills. Not only that, but look, how much we would actually spend on sex reassignment surgery would actually be very low according to Pentagon standards. A June 2016 study from the Rand Corporation, who was not really a liberal organization, all they did was just crunch the numbers, they estimated the cost associated with medical care for gender transition would only increase military health care expenditures between $2.4 million and $8.4 million each year. So, look, that sounds like a lot of money. Oh, my God, they're spending $2 million on, you know, sex reassignment surgery, turning men into women, women into men. Oh, my God, that's so much money. Well, let's put it in the context of the Pentagon budget. And look, this is the military's $47.8 billion annual health care budget. This isn't the total budget, which is over $600 billion a year. They carved out almost $50 billion for health care for all soldiers. Paying for transgender sex reassignment surgeries would increase the cost by between 0.04% and 0.13%. A little more than 0.1% of the budget. Not of the entire Pentagon budget, but to the health budget. That's what we're talking about here. That is such a momentous waste that the so-called deficit hawks are like, oh my God, look at how much money we're spending on transgender sex reassignment surgery. We got to stop it. We got to stop it, guys. We're wasting so much money. In fact, we're wasting so much money that we're going to derail all of the goodies that Donald Trump wants in this budget that we're trying to pass. For that little amount of money. That's what makes me think that it's not so much about the money. I think it's more about transphobia. But again, I don't have any direct proof of that. So, now, again, speaking of waste, right? You want to know what else is a waste other than just the boner pills, right? That cost 5 times more than F-35. Or the fact that we have 11 aircraft carriers in service. You might think, oh, well, we need those 11 aircraft carriers, don't we? Not necessarily. It takes $2.3 billion a year to run one aircraft carrier. We've got 11. The entire world, all the other countries' navies combined have a total of 8 aircraft carriers, and a lot of those include our allies. Why in the fuck do we need 11 of those? Oh, I know why. It's America. That's why. So yeah, let's talk about wasteful spending. So here's what's funny, right? The Republicans, these so-called deficit defense hawks, whatever, didn't want to spend money on reassignment surgeries. However, they also did not even think about expelling trans people from the military. Even though they don't want to spend money on their reassignment surgeries, they're still fine with having these people serve in the armed forces. They're like, yeah, we don't care if they're there. We just don't want to pay for them at all. I mean, we're going to be super, super stingy on this one. Because that's what we are. We're super stingy. Okay. Now, according to a senior aide who had an email exchange with Politico, House Republicans were never debating expelling all transgender troops from the military. So this isn't like what you're hearing from people like Tommy Loren. It's like, yes, they finally wanted to end the social experiment on our military. No, that wasn't the point at all. The point was just to be cheap. Now, House Republicans, as I said, according to this Republican aide in this email, said, this is like someone told the White House to light a candle on the table, and then the White House set the whole table on fire. No, that's amazing, right? So they turned to the White House. They're like, okay, do something so that we don't have to spend money on transgender sex reassignment surgery. Okay? We don't want to spend money on that. We want to be cheap fucking assholes and give more money to defense contractors. And what does Trump do? He fucks it up. Of course he fucks it up. He fucks up everything because he's got the Midas shit touch. Okay? Everything he touches falls to shit. And that's what he did. So, light a candle. Okay, so just light a candle. So we can push through these cuts. Oh, God, look at that. You lit the house on fire. Oh, no. Now, you realize that Trump's an idiot. He's got no tact, no nuance. So he's like, oh, yeah? Yeah, I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm just going to ban all transgender people. Idiot. He's a child. Now, the source said that although GOP leaders asked the White House for help in the taxpayer matter specifically, they were not expecting and got no heads up on Trump's far-reaching directive. So, now what's interesting now is that even though the House is on fire, and they didn't originally want to set it on fire, there are some Republicans that are like, hey, you know what? We kind of like it better this way. Let's not put the house fire out. One White House official said the decision would be, quote, seen as common sense by millions. Really? Okay. Though likely vociferously protested by others. White House officials also noted that conservatives had pushed for the ban, including a May letter that was signed by dozens of right-leaning hate groups. I added hate into that. Now, that same administration official said, quote, it's not the worst thing in the world to have this fight. So, now what about Mattis? Now, I talked about Mattis last time and some of the stuff that he had talked about. After all, he did greenlight a review and delayed what was supposed to happen in July, okay, where transgender people were going to be able to start getting the surgeries covered, right, by the military. And Mattis is like, no, let's do a review on this. Let's put the brakes on this. Let's give a 6-month review, and then we'll come back to it. We want to see if our fighting force can integrate well, and if we can, that it's not too disruptive, and that we still remain a lethal military. Okay, so that's what he did. Now, it turns out that upon learning about Donald Trump, and he was away, he was like on vacation or something, when he heard Trump's directive. And apparently he was not happy about this, okay? Now, according to the article and multiple sources, the announcement did not sit well with Mattis, who appeared to be trying to avoid the matter in recent weeks. An extensive Defense Department review of the policy was already underway, but the decision wasn't expected for months. Insiders said Mattis felt that there was no need to rush upending this policy. arguing the Pentagon needed time to study this issue. Well, wasn't the RAND studies enough? But hey, okay, if you want to do more studies, I guess, do what you got to do, but it's not going to change the result. And again, they already looked at the RAND studies. They already did these studies, and they found that there was little disruption, and that it actually turned out to be fine and not a huge drag financially on the Pentagon. Again, we gave you the numbers to this already. Now, its decision, they write, would affect at least 2,400 transgender active military personnel, according to that RAND report, though many military LGBT activist groups say as many as 15,000 soldiers fall into that category. So there's Mattis. Now, one of the people that were actually pushing for this is somebody named Representative Vicky Hartzler of Missouri. She's a Republican. Now, she's the original author of the House's transgender proposal to defund, right? Now, she had attempted to reach Mattis by phone numerous times to discuss the issue. He wasn't interested. He's like, oh, is it that Vicky Hartzler again? Yeah, put her on hold. Yeah, tell her I'm in the shitter or something. I don't really want to talk to her. I don't really want to address this issue. I don't really care. Okay, we're doing the review. Good enough. She's like, no, I want to talk to you. No, I want to talk to you. Mattis only got back to her to the day, back to her the day she forced the matter on the House floor in mid-July. And this is according to Representative Tom MacArthur, who opposed the Hartler proposal. He said Mattis asked Hartler to withdraw her amendment and give him space to maneuver. Hey, look, I know you keep trying to get a hold of me, but I'm telling you, we're doing a review right now. So get off my nuts. All right? We're doing it. We're doing this whole thing. We're looking at it. We're doing the review. So get out of my face. Withdraw your amendment. Now, lawmakers, including Hartzler, went around Mattis. They were not satisfied with what Mattis was saying, so they went around him to engage the White House. Mattis knew the ban was being considered and was consulted before the announcement, according to several White House officials, but the decision ultimately came down from Trump and was, quote, White House driven, according to different aides for Trump. Now, the president, in doing so, he was already thinking about this for a while. So it turns out it wasn't quite as spontaneous as a decision as it had seemed. He was thinking about this, and he was like, transgender people, I don't like this delay. Let's make a decision. According to one person, he was annoyed. A different official said the White House had gotten positive reaction from conservatives, an important factor amid their displeasure with Trump's recent bashing of Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Conservatives were telling the White House that they didn't want money in a spending bill to go to transgender health services, said one senior administration official, noting that it had accelerated Trump's decision. So all these conservative groups, they start pressuring Donald Trump. And they're like, hey, you know what would be super great? You know what would make you a tremendous, fantastic president? If you were to ban transgender people from the military. That would be amazing. And that's what we're trying to do. And if you do that, you're going to get some goodies. You're going to get funding for your wall. And if you don't go along with, so you don't play ball, well, you're not going to get that money to build your Mexican wall. But wait a minute, I thought Mexico was supposed to pay for that. Anybody know what happened to that? Seemed to have disappeared. Now, their argument, Politico writes, fell on sympathetic ears. White House sources said Chief Strategist Steve Bannon also had encouraged Trump to deal with the matter now. And of course, in trying to deal with it, my opinion is I think he might have actually fucked it over. Now, look at the outrage here. It's almost overwhelming, okay? Now, as I said, the Joint Chiefs are against it. Mattis, so far, seems to be against it until his review comes back. Moderate Republicans are against it, people like John McCain. And you also have the Democrats that are teaming up with Republicans to say, this is bullshit. They're against a wholesale ban. So that's going to be very interesting how this plays out from here. Now, it kind of shows you, too, that if you ask Trump for something, well, he's going to go above and beyond. But only if you have something to offer him first. And look, it doesn't matter what it is. Even if it's breaking a campaign promise, if somebody makes you a really good offer, if you're Donald Trump, he's going to take it. So he's going to fuck over transgender people, or going to try to fuck over transgender people, even though he promised, oh, I'm going to be great to the transgenders. I'm going to be fantastic. No. Trump is easily bought, and he's easily influenced, and he's definitely for sale. And what's interesting about this example is that he might actually do it in such a ham-fisted, ridiculous way that it might actually doom the policy itself. So we're going to have to see what comes of this, whether or not I'm correct in the fact that he's fucked this up. But for now, the ban is not in effect. So what they haven't done yet is that the White House actually hasn't sent the Department of Defense new rules, and Mattis hasn't issued any or they actually haven't sent Mattis any additional guidelines for this. So right now, trans people are still able to serve. However, because of a lot of this, I can understand that a lot of them are very nervous and will be very nervous until whatever decision comes down and whatever the future is going to bring. So here's hoping that we can still stop this. That Mattis can stop this, the Joint Chiefs can stop this, and that this kind of pressure against the president might actually be effective in ending this policy. And by the way, one more question here. What happened to Ivanka? Why is she? I thought she was supposed to be the social, liberal. I thought her and Jared Kushner were supposed to keep Donald Trump in check when it comes to these decisions. Oh, right. She doesn't want to spend her political capital. And if she's not there to do that, then what is she there for? Because she's obviously not helping whatsoever. Okay, anyway, there's that. So, transgender ban. Let's move on to another piece of legislation that is happening, and that is the healthcare bill. Here we go again. Anti-Obamacare Republicans just can't seem to catch a break. Now, just a day after the Senate voted to, tried and failed, by the way, to kill Trump Care. First, after advancing it to debate with 50 votes, plus Mike Pence doing the tiebreaker vote, the Senate also failed to repeal some of the major pieces of Obamacare. So first they try to advance Trump Care after they got it into debate. That failed. And then, well, they tried to do a full just repeal of Obamacare, or what they could get rid of, using only 50 votes. That also failed, and now they're trying something else. Now, let me give you some of the details here from the Washington Post about that first full repeal attempt. Now, 7 Republican senators had joined Democrats to vote against that measure that would have left millions of people without health insurance coverage. Now, according to the CBO, a full repeal of Obamacare would kick 32 million people off their health insurance. So that's the numbers on that, okay? At CBO, like I said, they already ran these numbers, and they found 32 million people. No wonder 7 Republicans were like, yeah, we can't vote for that. Including, again, John McCain, who's like, I can't vote for a complete repeal. We got to have something, even if it's completely crappy. We got to have at least something. So again, I guess a little bit of credit to John McCain, even though I went after him pretty heavily yesterday. Now, the Post continues. The rejection of what they called a clean repeal laid bare the deep divisions within the Republican caucus about how best to proceed. The night before, 9 Republicans, including both conservatives and moderates, voted against a comprehensive legislation to repeal the health care law and provide a replacement. That replacement would have kicked 22 million people off their health insurance and raised premiums by quite a bit. And also would have hurt people with pre-existing conditions. And then you had the Cruz Amendment, as well as the Portman Amendment. Portman Amendment would have actually put more money into people who are going to lose Medicaid to help subsidize them, which, hey, at least thanks for the thought. And the Cruz Amendment would allow insurance companies to sell more junk insurance plans, which are not comprehensive, which don't really cover everything, as long as they actually also offer a plan that does offer more comprehensive coverage. So there's that, right? So, okay, so they voted against Trump Care, and they also voted against a clean repeal. So what this tells me is basically they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Now, look, you guys had this long to figure it out. It shouldn't be this hard. It's almost like maybe they didn't mean it when they said repeal and replace, or just repeal Obamacare, because they don't have the votes for it. Now, remember all the times they voted in the House and you know, in order to, like, oh, we're gonna repeal Obamacare, we'll rip it out root and stem. And they voted for it because they knew it had no chance of passing. And now that it actually does have a chance of passing, they can get 50 votes. As long as they get 50 votes, and you can have Mike Pence be the tiebreaker and go in and you know, send the legislation over the edge, and you can pass whatever you want through reconciliation, which is how they're trying to do it. And there are, of course, special arcane rules for what you can pass through reconciliation. Like, you can't actually do a full-on Obamacare repeal, but you can essentially gut the law through reconciliation. And that's what they've been trying to do, but they can't even do that. So, it's funny because it's almost like Obamacare was their plan for the start. But those damn centrist Democrats and damn Obama had to come and steal it. And then leave them without any sort of backup plan. Weird how that works, right? So, now what's next? Well, they're not done with this. Not by a long shot. Sure, their repeal and replace failed. Their repeal failed. Fell flat on its face. What else can they actually do? Well, now they're looking at what they're calling a skinny repeal. Now, what's that? Again, it's not a full repeal. I go to the Washington Post. They'll explain. Without the votes to replace the health law, or simply to repeal major parts of it, Senate Republicans appeared increasingly likely to try to pass a modest measure that would repeal only a few provisions of the law, such as the tax on medical devices and the requirements that most individuals have insurance and that large employers offer coverage to workers. So basically, summed up, they want to get rid of the individual mandate. That's been a target for them, of course. Now, that keeps the entire law afloat. So, I mean, look, the individual mandate, I understand, is very unpopular because it levies a penalty on people who don't get insurance. Now, the whole reason for the mandate is to stabilize markets. If you have to buy in health insurance as a healthy person, you help balance out people who are sick. That's how insurance is supposed to work. Because insurance, people who are, you know, who have pre-existing conditions, who are sick, they end up taking out more money through insurance than what they put in. And if you don't have healthy people to balance it out, that's going to drive up premiums to the point of where people who need the insurance are not going to be able to afford it. People with cancer, people with diabetes, people who have any sort of special condition or pre-existing condition. It's going to, again, drive it to the point of where they can't afford their insurance, and that's going to completely wreck the market. That's why there is an individual mandate inside of Obamacare. As unpopular as it is, and I understand why, it was there for a reason, to stabilize the markets. But anyway, now they also want to get rid of course, mandatory coverage by employers. So in the law, they said, hey man, look, if you have a certain number of employees, you need to cover them with health insurance. Okay. A lot of employers obviously didn't like that. So, and the Republicans also don't like that, who are funded by those employers, by those companies. They are the party of business. Now, another part that they got rid of is this tax, right? Or they want to get rid of is the tax on medical devices. Okay. Essentially, that's a tax cut on rich people. Okay. So there's all that. Now, you probably wonder, how's that going to work out? Well, actually, I have an answer. And it's not just me. It's the CBO that has an answer, actually. They looked at that, and they found that if you removed some of these provisions and did the skinny repeal, the number of uninsured people would actually increase by 15 million people next year. Okay, so you might think, hey man, look, 15 million people, they're going to lose their insurance, but at least my premiums will get cheaper now that I don't have that individual mandate, right? Well, no. according to the analysis, health insurance premiums will actually increase by over 20%. So those of you, yeah, you'll have the option of not buying insurance. But for the people who are buying insurance, who are paying for insurance, their premiums are going to go up by 20%. Wait, now, wasn't the whole point of repeal and replace or repeal or all the bullshit that they're doing, isn't that supposed to lower premiums? No. Look, I know that's not the point. The point is to sabotage the law. Now, the law, look, Obamacare, we know it's not perfect, okay? But for a lot of people, it is actually working, at least compared to what was before, which was massively not working. Now, the Republicans sabotage it. Basically, what it's going to do, their whole intent is to sabotage it so that they can justify getting rid of the whole thing later. And they can actually maybe get some Democratic support, or in 2018, win enough seats in the Senate so that they can, do a bill without having to worry about a filibuster. So you can have a filibuster-proof majority, so you can finally get rid of the scourge of Obamacare and cut taxes on rich people. Okay, so that's what they're going to do. Now, Republicans are like, no, that's not what we're doing at all. That's not the point. No, we just want to get the two sides together. That's what we're doing this for. According to Senator Bob Corker, Republican of Tennessee, he says, I think people would look at it not necessarily based on its content, what they're trying to pass, but as a forcing mechanism to cause the two sides of the building to try to come together and solve it together. Oh, see, no, this is their attempt at being bipartisan. You know what's going to happen? Yeah, not that. Now, how stupid do these Republicans think we are? No. I got an idea. You come to us. We're not going to come to you. Your plans have failed. They're incredibly unpopular. Even with majorities in the government, you still cannot get any of this done. Sure, the Democrats could filibuster. They have the power to filibuster a normal repeal bill, right? That's why you have to do this budget reconciliation, which locks out. I mean, you didn't have to do budget reconciliation. You could have went to the Democrats and said, all right, we want to make some changes to Obamacare. Would you want to work with us? But they didn't even want to try that because they're not interested in working with the Democrats. At least they weren't when they started budget reconciliation. Then they realized, shit, our party's fucked. We have so many disagreements, we can't agree on what to do, on what our replacement bill is even going to look like. So now they actually are trying to do this, to do the skinny repeal, to sabotage the law, so they can bring the Democrats over to the table. Wonderful. Look, you guys never wanted to work with the Democrats in the first place. So, no, fuck you. Fuck off, Bob Corker. We're not interested. Not interested in helping you. Now, look, if you want to come to our side and apply some fixes to the ACA to make it a little bit better, great. Welcome. But look, even that's a Band-Aid because the real solution to the problems inherent in Obamacare go far beyond simple fixes. I believe that only changing the system to a Medicare for all, single-payer universal healthcare system is the real fix for the problems that face the healthcare industry today. But, hey, at least fixing the ACA would be a little bit of a start. At least that's what the voters want you to do. According to an ABC News Washington Post poll, 61% of respondents want Obamacare fixed instead of repealed or replaced. A Monmouth University poll conducted back in May found that 51% of Americans would prefer to keep and work to improve the ACA. And finally, a Kaiser Health tracking poll found that Obamacare has over 50% approval rating. So why should we come to you? Especially when your plans have at best 20% approval. Look, the American people, they know the flaws in Obamacare, okay? And what they want to do is they want to actually fix them. And there's actually a good majority of the people that actually want to either expand it or switch to a Medicare for all system. So, again, tell me why the Democrats should work with you, Bob Corker. Tell me, Mitch McConnell, why should the Democrats work with you? Republicans can't even work with each other. While even progressives agree, right? Progressives and liberals. Everybody talks about the schism there, and trust me, there is. Look, even liberals and progressives centrist Democrats, corporate Democrats, even we can get together and say, okay, let's at least make some fixes to the ACA so we don't fuck over people. We're still going to push for Medicare for all. But God, let's do something to help in the meantime until we can get to that point. Okay? Because, look, we actually give a shit about the people. Unlike some Republicans, all they want to do is punch poor people in the face so they can get a tax cut. Now, one more thing that's very interesting about this skinny repeal is, look, Republicans, how do they feel about this? Again, this is their plan. This is what they're going to try to do. Now, I have some quotes here. Now, this is from Senator Bill Cassidy, he's Republican from Louisiana. He articulated this. Let's pass something, and we can figure out something later. Passing Friday's bill, which is when they plan to vote for this skinny repeal, he said moves the process forward, but it's not going to be the final law. No. We're just going to get something. Let's just do something, okay? Senator John Thune said, quote, there's a big difference between voting on something at the beginning of the process and voting on something at the end of the process when it's only the train leaving the station. So basically, I don't know, we're just pushing something forward. If we can do the skinny repeal, great. Senator Bob Corker, again, said, in the Senate thus far, the approach was to be aspirational. That would not be the case here. What would be the case here would be to get to the lowest common denominator. Well, you would know all about the lowest common denominator, Mr. Corker. And then, of course, you have Senator Suzanne Collins, who had some disagreements about the process of this entire skinny repeal. She said, everybody keeps asking me if I'm going to support the skinny repeal amendment. To which I say, I have no idea what's going to be in it. So, look, there's the mood in the Senate. That's the Republicans. So, from what I gather, I think it's safe to say that the whole thing, at this point, is not going well. And who knows what they're going to actually be able to accomplish, if anything. So, there's healthcare. Jeez, man. This is going to be a long show. Buckle up. Let's go to Cantor. Now, Eric Cantor used to be the House Majority Leader before he was crushed by Dave Brat. Now, Dave Brat ran against him and obviously beat him, but he did so in a very interesting way. You see, he actually ran against the banks. Well, we gave him some credit for that because he ran as a populist, and nobody likes the banks. That's something that both Democrats and Republicans can agree on, is the banks are screwing us over. And it really shows you how unpopular they are and how a populist can arise on the right by going after financial institutions. Okay. Now, another thing that Cantor did, which was popular with the Republican base, was also run on repealing Obamacare, the ACA. In fact, he couldn't wait to repeal Obamacare. He tried so much that he ended up bringing dozens of repeal bills to the House floor. He also spearheaded the Defund Obamacare campaigns all during the Obama administration. Of course, it had during that time, it had no chance of passing. Now, that strategy, however, even though it didn't bear fruit, was actually incredibly effective in other ways. Now, when you combine it with the weakness of the Democrats and how they didn't push for something that would actually help improve the ACA or go to a Medicare for all system or push at least for a public option, which I think would have helped Obamacare immensely. Then people can buy into Medicare or Medicaid, for example, whatever way you go. And Medicaid's actually far more expansive and covers more than Medicare does. Well, people would be like, hey, this Obamacare is not so bad. I mean, at least I get this public option. And guess what? I prefer the public option. So, but the Democrats, again, they were fairly weak on this issue and just played defense. And they played it very, very poorly. Now, because of that, and because of the unpopularity of the ACA, being as it is a right-wing plan, turns out the Republican Party had quite a few victories. First in 2010, then 2014, and then, of course, Donald Trump, 2016. Okay. So that's what we already knew. We already knew all that. Now, what we didn't know, but we actually kind of suspected, is that Eric Cantor and actually a lot of the Republicans, it turns out they didn't actually believe that they would ever get to repeal Obamacare. Now, this is amazing, right? Now, how do I know this for a fact? Well, it's because I actually talked to Eric Cantor, and they got it essentially from the horse's mouth. Now, the former GOP leader recently talked to the Washingtonian, the Washingtonian's Elena Plott. And during that interview, he pretty much spilled the beans. Yeah, we didn't think that we were going to repeal Obamacare. We weren't actually serious about this. He said that parts of the conservative base do expect the party to repeal the ACA. And it's because of what he and the other leaders had promised. And what's interesting is that he and his colleagues had never actually intended to keep those promises. Now, if he was asked if he felt partly responsible for the Republicans' current predicament of them not being able to pass not only Trump Care or a full repeal of Obamacare, which you can't do anyway, or even a skinny repeal of Obamacare, when asked if he felt responsible for that, he said, oh, 100%. It looks like I overpromised. And I actually got these rubes, these voters, riled up. And look, that helped us. Maybe not me personally, because I got crushed by Dave Brott, who also promised, even more so, to go after Obamacare, said I was weak on repealing Obamacare. Because I didn't even mean it. I guess that's true. Yeah, he says, yeah, look, it's my fault. Partly my fault, but we all kind of knew. He goes further. He said, to give the impression that if Republicans were in control of the House and Senate, that we could do that when Obama was still in office. His voice trails off and he shakes his head. Quote, I never believed it. Look, all he did is that, hey, man, we played politics against the other side. We knew that all we were doing was fucking around. We never realized that we're actually going to get the reins of power. I mean, sure, we could have actually addressed the real problems of the ACA by working with the Democrats, but no. What we're going to do, we're just going to fuck around in order to get victories, in order to play politics, get electoral victories, because that's all we care about. We don't actually care about the voters. We don't actually care about people who have enormous deductibles and can't actually afford health insurance, even though they're paying their premiums. So they can't afford their health care. They pay their premiums, and they're begging for somebody to help them out. GOP says, yeah, sure, we can help you. We'll repeal Obamacare. Just vote for us. Oh, you actually did that? Oh, shit. Now we actually got to govern. Oh, God. Oh, God. What do we do? What do we? Skinny repeal. Skinny repeal. Let's throw together a plan real quick. Trump Care. They never intended on helping you. They don't care about you. They never cared about you. And look, all this is after the Democrats bent over to get Republicans. Well, I shouldn't say, well, maybe I should say bend over, but I was going to say they bent backwards to get Republican votes. That meant, of course, dropping the public option, dropping price controls, and other things that could have been in that bill that would have actually made it much better. They didn't do that. They tried to get, of course, Republican votes. And interestingly enough, this plan, Obamacare, was actually just Romney Care, the Heritage Foundation. So it was their plan anyway. And they still voted against it. It's kind of funny that here's Obama, ran as a progressive, ran to change healthcare, had a good idea with the public option, but decided, you know what? In his infinite wisdom, he is going to steal their healthcare plan and use it and think, okay, if we only use their healthcare plan and we make it very conservative, as conservative as they want it to be, they'll vote for it. Well, how'd that work out? Not very well. But anyway, we got the ACA, and it's got good parts in it. It's got some bad parts in it. And we got it with 0 Republican votes. Now, of course, they're beating us over the head with it right now. Oh, my God. See, we didn't get, the Democrats didn't reach out to us. I mean, how many Republican votes did it get? Did Obamacare get? None. So why should we have to reach out to the Democrats? Obama gave every chance for the Republicans to go in and actually work on healthcare. See, the Democrats, they're not strong like the Republicans. That's one of the problems. Republicans will steamroll you if they have the power. Democrats, they're conciliatory. And look, at a normal government in a functional democracy, that would actually work. But we don't live in a functional democracy. We live in an oligarchy. So we've got rich people essentially paying other rich people to make rules that help rich people. So that's what we're living in. And so we're not in a functional democracy. So the system is incredibly broken. Now, anyway, look, the House led by Cantor, who, again, voted against the passage of the ACA, right after it happened, said, okay, let's repeal it. In fact, that was their major goal from day one. Let's get rid of the ACA and also try to make Obama a one-term president. All we're going to do is we're going to sit and play obstruction and play politics. Now, but just as he said, they never believed it. He never believed it. He never thought that they would actually try to repeal this thing. And furthermore, of course, everybody was in on it. He said, we all sort of got what was going on, that there was this disconnect in terms of communication. Because no one wanted to take the time out in the general public to even think about, wait a minute, that can't happen. But he adds, if you've got that anger working for you, you're gonna let it be. Basically, yeah, we just took advantage of you. We took advantage of your anger and for politics. We played you as suckers. We got you all riled up and mad, and then we used it to win electoral victories so we can get paid by our donors. Again, we weren't here to help you. We're here to help ourselves. We're here to help our donors. And look, the worst thing about it is, as you see, it worked. It worked. Now, if you're a Republican voter who voted for people who actually thought that these guys were going to help you by fixing or repealing the ACA, which I don't know how that you think that it would help you, but okay, maybe it would in some circumstances. I don't know. Do you not feel stupid? Because you probably should. Especially when some of them didn't even realize that what they were railing against, Obamacare, was actually helping them. Was actually the insurance that they were receiving. Look, for example, let me give you an example. Kentucky, right? Now, Kentucky had Connect, which was the most successful insurance exchange in the entire country. So much so that Mitch McConnell, when he was running for re-election, he ran on protecting Connect. Oh, I'm going to protect the health insurance exchange in Kentucky because we know how popular it is. Everybody loves it. My opponent over here, well, they're not going to protect it. They're going to give you Obamacare, but I'm going to protect Connect. Okay, so that's what that happened. Now, here's the thing. He couldn't wait to actually get rid of the law, the mechanism that made Connect possible, which is the ACA. And yet, of course, people in Kentucky, a lot of them low information voters, exposed to Fox News and conservative media, steady diet of that, they didn't realize that the ACA was the same thing as Obamacare. So they go around and be like, oh, I love Connect. I actually got affordable health insurance through Connect, or, I got Medicaid or whatever. I love it. But I hate that Obamacare. Keep me away from that. That's socialism. That's terrible. Like, ugh. And then, of course, some of them later found out that, oh, shit, Obamacare is the ACA. The ACA is Obamacare. I was just railing against my own healthcare plan. Fuck. I have made a terrible mistake. And that's what happened. So, look, they played off fear. They played off ignorance. They played off racism. I mean, let's be honest. Part of the reason that a lot of people don't like Obamacare is simply it's got Obama in the name. Okay. And now, look, here's Cantor out there saying, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you're pretty much right about that. The anger was there, and we just used it. We're politicians. What do you expect? You expect us to represent you? No, that's not what we do. And they wrote off that anger just to get elected. And they didn't even know that it was going to work. But it did. And now, as you've seen, they have no plan. No plan whatsoever. Now, look, the bullshit that they threw together, not a plan. Okay? It's just like, I don't know, let's pick the most conservative things from the Heritage Foundation and let's throw it together. Let's call it a healthcare plan. And it's no wonder that, of course, the CBO trashes it every time, because it starts by throwing 24 million people, 23 million, 22 million people, the skinny repeal, somewhere around, 15 million people, and raising premiums by 20%. Exactly the opposite of what they've been promising for years. We'll repeal Obamacare, we'll replace it with something that's going to be cheaper, that's going to have freedom, and then, it's just going to be better for America. Hasn't really came true, okay? So what they've thrown together is nothing more than a desperate attempt to look like that they're actually doing something so they don't get destroyed at the polls. So there's the truth of it. There's the truth behind the Republicans' repeal and replace effort. And it's not coming from me. It's coming from one of your own. If you're a Republican, you should be really pissed at the party right now. Okay. No, we're going to keep going. We got more time. We got more stories. Let's do this. Let's go to the Scouts. Now, recently, President Trump gave a speech to the Boy Scouts of America. Now, look, that in itself, not entirely unusual. In fact, it's kind of a tradition that different presidents adhere to. I mean, look, every president goes and gives a speech. And I got to point out that, yes, even Obama was there, because that's going to factor into what I'm going to show you next. Now, what is unusual about Donald Trump's speech is that he took something that is inherently not supposed to be political, and he made it incredibly political. In fact, CNN put together a bunch of clips from that event, and I want to show you that right now. Let's take a look.
Who the hell wants to speak about politics when I'm in front of the Boy Scouts, right? The Scouts believe in putting America first. You know, I go to Washington and I see all these politicians and I see the swamp, and it's not a good place. In fact, today I said we ought to change it from the word swamp to the word cesspool, or perhaps to the word sewer, but it's not good. By the way, just a question. Did President Obama ever come to a jamboree? Boy Scout values are American values, and great Boy Scouts become great, great Americans. As the Scout law says, a Scout is trustworthy, loyal. We could use some more loyalty, I will tell you that. Do you remember that incredible night with the maps? And the Republicans are red, and the Democrats are blue, and that map was so red, it was unbelievable, and they didn't know what to say. And hopefully, he's going to get the votes tomorrow to start our path toward killing this horrible thing known as Obamacare that's really hurting us. So he better get him. Oh, he better. Otherwise, I'll say, Tom, you're fired.
Okay. So, look, that was very political. He was like, Obamacare, disaster, it's hurting everybody. You're not there to give a campaign speech, dude. So, look, okay, some of you might look at this and be like, okay, whatever, dude. What does it matter? He's giving a political speech. Well, it turns out a lot of the parents of those kids at the Jamboree, because again, this was not a campaign speech. They didn't go out to see Donald Trump. What they were doing is that they were having their annual Jamboree, and Donald Trump, and look, a lot of presidents, they go and speak there. And usually their speeches are inspirational, like, you know, think of something inspirational. I really can't. I'm not an inspirational person. Let's just put that. Okay. But when you're there, you're supposed to say something inspirational. You're supposed to leave politics and bullshit out of it. Instead, he's like, Obamacare. Did you see how much I won? Oh, that red. Oh, so much red. It was tremendous. Well, it turns out that a lot of parents didn't sign up for that. They're like, they were pissed. And, of course, they expected the Boy Scouts, the leader of the Boy Scouts, to speak out because, again, these are kids, they're 10 to 18-year-olds, and he's there treating this like it's a campaign speech with all of his fans. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, you know how conservatives tend to rail against schools for trying to indoctrinate children? What do you think that campaign speech was about? Just saying. If, for example, he got the crowd to boo President Obama. Did he ever go to a jamboree? No. Actually, that's false. He was actually there in 2010. But that's a good example of indoctrination. He literally lied to the crowd. So a lot of parents noticed that, they were pissed. Okay. Now, again, the question is, the parents were putting a lot of pressure on the Boy Scouts and the Facebook page, lots of angry messages, lots of angry tweets. So why didn't the president speak out? The president of the Boy Scouts. Well, first, who is the president of the Boy Scouts? Well, it's a man named Randall Stephenson. Now, you might not have heard of him, but I'm fairly certain you've heard of the company that he runs. See, in addition to running the Boy Scouts, he's also the chairman of AT&T. Now, look, he's not the first CEO to have run the Boy Scouts, so that's not unusual. Okay, business figures do come in. Stephen Randall himself came in 2016. So, again, not super unusual. But here's where it gets a little complicated. For that, I go to the Washington Post. They explain that Stephenson's company, AT&T, is currently facing a Justice Department antitrust review on its proposed $85 billion merger with Time Warner. So, now that's interesting because there seems to be a bit of a conflict of interest here. Now, on the one hand, people have been blowing up the BSA's Facebook page with comments threatening to to pull out their children and to end donations, right? To no longer donate to the organization unless the group denounces that speech, which they say was not keeping with the group's values of kindness and courtesy, right? Now, what's funny is that you actually expect kindness and courtesy from Trump. That's cute. But anyway, in a recent statement, the BSA had addressed it by saying, hey, we're nonpartisan, and that the invitation for the president to visit is a long-standing tradition. It's tradition. It's not an endorsement. We can't control what he says. Yeah, but you can denounce it when it gets overly political. That's the whole problem. It got overly political, and that wasn't the whole point of the speech. It wasn't the whole point to go there and visit the jamboree. Again, it was to be inspirational. Obama could do an inspiration. Like, you didn't see Obama doing this speech. And that's why nobody remembers this, by the way. When he went to the jamboree, he wasn't like, oh, man, that McCain, let me tell you what. I lit him up. Let me tell you, that map was all blue. It was tremendous. No, he didn't do that. He didn't push his policies. No, he was doing an inspirational speech, okay? About how, we're all American and American values, Boy Scout values, and he was a Boy Scout. Was Donald Trump a Boy Scout? No, absolutely not. So, those parents, of course, they want an apology for letting one of the few things left in America that wasn't political becoming political. Okay, that became political. But unfortunately, at least for us, Stephenson has about 85 billion reasons not to apologize. So here's another interesting part of the story, getting into the deal. Now, AT&T, as I said, they want to merge with Time Warner. Now, Time Warner owns CNN. And President Trump, he happens to hate CNN. You see where this is going? He also hates CNN President Jeff Zucker. In fact, he claimed on the campaign trail that he would stop the deal between AT&T and Time Warner because it concentrates too much power in the hands of a few. Now, look, I actually agree with that statement 100%. I'm not in favor of the deal personally. I'm like, no, I don't want this deal. I don't want to have more media consolidation. That's generally a bad thing. So, look, I would rule against this deal. Like, if I were president for a day, and that would be fucked up, I would do some great things. Tremendous things. Medicare for all, done. outlawing this deal. Done. No media consolidation. I'm against that. Now, and look, media consolidation is bad in several different ways. It destroys competition. And it's also, since our media is for profit, I think that has a negative effect on the population. Because when you're doing news for money and for access and for advertisers, generally it turns out poorly when it comes to actual information about what's going on. Okay. And I think that media consolidation and the way our media structure is today is partly the reason for Donald Trump being there. So basically, I'm trying to explain that me and progressives, generally, we're against this deal for the right reasons. Donald Trump is not. He's actually bullshitting in order to get what he wants. And what he wants is Jeff Zucker's head on a pike. That's what he wants. According to an earlier report in the New York Times back in June, White House advisors had even reportedly considered using their influence on the deal as leverage against CNN. So punishing a political enemy. Yeah, we don't like CNN. We don't like what they're saying about us. We don't like Jeff Zucker. So, oh, look at that. Oh, you seem to have a merger deal going through that I could approve or deny. You know, if you give me what I want, if you play ball, we might let that go through. We're going to use that as leverage, okay? Now, one advisor during that New York Times story had told them that the administration would not support the merger, so this is their terms, if CNN president Zucker remains CNN president. Now, look, first of all, I want to say that this thing actually does happen more than Trump, okay? It happened before Trump. It'll probably happen after Trump. The White House will use this political pressure to approve or disapprove mergers. They'll put pressure in order to get something that they want out of the deal. It's not unsurprising that this happens. But see, Trump's unsophisticated. You're supposed to actually do it behind the scenes if you're going to do it at all, which you shouldn't. But I'm saying that as the normal order of business and their corruption, you're supposed to be smart enough to hide your corruption. Donald Trump is not smart enough to hide his corruption. He's out in the open with it. They're out in the open with it. Like, yeah, we're going to use it as leverage. What? There are no rules anymore. We broke all the rules. So now it's just us and what we want is Zucker removed. When you do that, you play ball, then you're going to get your merger. And if you suck up to me, you might get your merger. So, again, this is not a review to make sure that the power is not concentrated in the hands of a few. It's a message. Get on board. And we will let you make billions of dollars. Now, Stevenson does not want to end up like Jeff Zucker. Okay? He wants this deal badly. $85 billion. I wouldn't blame him for wanting this deal. And he's been reportedly lobbying Trump heavily in order to try and get this deal. Now, he actually even went to Trump Tower to try to butter him up by attending a White House meeting in technology in June, where he was seated next to Donald Trump, who called him or who praised him for having an excellent management style. Well, let me tell you about Trump, okay? If you're rich and you're on his side, if you suck up to him, he's going to think that you're great. That's his people. Okay, he doesn't like poor people. He thinks that, no, if you're poor, you're not a good person. You fucked up. Okay, I don't want anything to do with you. You're not a good person. If you're rich, well, that means you're fantastic. I want to hang around you. Okay, now, if you're rich but you're against him, well, it's different. He's going to go after you. He's going to go after you like Jeff Bezos or Jeff Zucker. Seems like he is allied against Jeff's. Very interesting. Kind of ironic. But he's going to make life very difficult for you. Exactly what he's trying to do in this merger. Now, look, that almost makes him sound like a mobster, but again, it's not like he hasn't been accused of having those ties either. But basically, if you want your deal approved, you shut your mouth on issues like this. You do not criticize Donald Trump. So that puts Stevenson in a very difficult and awkward position. Okay? Shut your mouth. Don't criticize the president, or else. And with so much money on the line, it's no wonder that the Boy Scouts did exactly that. They're not calling Trump out on his ridiculous, nakedly partisan speech. And again, it's all about the money. It's always been about the money, and it will always be about the money. Okay. One more story. Now, Anthony Scaramucci is Donald Trump's new White House communications director. Now, this is a guy who not even Sean Spicer could stand to work for. Just to show you what kind of person this is. Now, he talks like Trump. He's a fellow New Yorker like Trump. Nothing wrong with that. But he comes across as a tough guy. Okay? Now, he's such a tough guy that he's going after the leakers, right? He wants to go after the leakers because his friend Donald Trump, friend Donnie, well, he's been dogged by these leaks. All these leaks coming out there. Oh, man, why didn't Jeff Sessions go after the leaks? Well, fine. We're going to get our own guy to go after the leaks. No, really. So he's going after the leaks. He's going after the leaks. Now, what's funny is that Scaramucci just had something, well, reportedly leaked about him. That's interesting. But actually, it's a public disclosure form, so it actually wasn't leaked. But he claims that it is, and it was actually leaked to Politico. Now, he tweeted after that broke that he would contact the FBI because leaking that disclosure form that was publicly available, he thought was a felony. But actually, no, it's not a felony because it was a public document. But nonetheless, he still has to find someone to blame. And of course, that might be White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. So now later on, he did delete that tweet, but he still has it out for Priebus. This morning, for example, CNN was interviewing Ryan Lizza. Now, Ryan Lizza was a person who received this public document, okay, that Scaramucci was so upset about. And so while watching that segment on CNN, Scaramucci decides he's had enough, and he's going to go call into CNN and set the record straight. So let's take a look.
The President and I would like to tell everybody we have a very, very good idea of who the leakers are, who the senior leakers are in the White House. We'll get to that in a second. But what I also want to say is that we are working together, the President and myself and other members of his team in law enforcement, to undercut and undercover or out, if you will, the leakers in the entire country. As the President would say in his own words, the White House leakers are small potatoes. I'll talk to you about a few leaks that happened last night that I find reprehensible, but the White House leaks are small potatoes relative to things that are going on with leaking things about Syria or North Korea or leaking things about Iraq. Those are the types of leaks that are so treasonous that 150 years ago people would have actually been hung for those types of leaks. So what I want to say to you is I understand the law. I know that there was a public disclosure mechanism in my financial forms. What I'm upset about is the process and the junk pool, the dirty pool, Chris, in terms of the way this stuff is being done. And the leaking won't stop. I can't have a couple of friends up from Fox and Friends and Sean Hannity, who's one of my closest friends, to dinner with the President and his First Lady without it being leaked in 7 minutes. It's absolutely, completely, and totally reprehensible. And as you know from the Italian expression, the fish stinks from the head down. But I can tell you two fish that don't stink, okay? And that's me and the President. I don't like the activity that's going on in the White House. I don't like what they're doing to my friend. I don't like what they're doing to the President of the United States or their fellow colleagues in the West Wing. Now, if you want to talk about the Chief of Staff, we have had odds. We have had differences. When I said we were brothers from the podium, that's because we're rough on each other. Some brothers are like Cain and Abel. Other brothers can fight with each other and get along. I don't know if this is repairable or not. That will be up to the President. but he's the chief of staff. He's responsible for understanding and uncovering and helping me do that inside the White House, which is why I put that tweet out last night. When the journalists who actually know who the leakers are, like Ryan Lizard, they know the leakers. Jonathan Swain at Axio, these guys know who the leakers are. I respect them for not telling me because I understand and respect journalistic integrity. However, when I put out a tweet and I put Reince's name in the tweet, they're all making the assumption that it's him because journalists know who the leakers are. So if Reince wants to explain that he's not a leaker, let him do that.
Okay, so look, there's a lot to break down in that. But first off, the dirty pool? Okay. Look, that whole administration's a dirty pool. You know what I'm saying? But look, that was super bizarre. Oh man, the fish stinks from the head down. But I know the two fish that don't stink. And that's me and Donald Trump. Who is this guy? What the hell? No, I get it. He's Donald Trump's friend. And he's obviously not a fan of Reince Priebus. Because he's saying like, hey man, look, journalists know who the leakers are. And Reince Priebus, I mean, you got to tell me if you're not a leaker. I mean, you just got to come out with it whether you're a leaker or not. And by the way, some of the stuff that's been leaked out, very treasonous. People got hung for that. Okay, wow. Very interesting. Now, look, yes, he doesn't like Reince Priebus. I don't like Reince Priebus. I don't know anybody who does like Reince Priebus, but I'm actually going to defend him. I don't think he's a leaker. Now, I could be wrong, but I actually think that leakers, I think there's multiple leakers, and I think these are just members of the low-level staff. Again, that's my speculation. I've got no proof. Maybe it is Reince Priebus. Who knows, right? But, again, that's my uninformed speculation on who's leaking. Now, you know who else has uninformed speculation? I think Scaramucci. No, I have a pretty good idea who the leaker is. And it just happens to be somebody that I don't get along with. Weird. I don't know. But look, Priebus, again, Scaramucci doesn't like Priebus. Priebus blocked him from several different administration positions. So he's got it out for Priebus. Donald Trump has had it out for Priebus for quite some time. So maybe they just want to get rid of him. Now, why was he even there then? I think that when Donald Trump got elected, he made a deal with the establishment Republicans in order to put in some people and get some deals, right? If Trump's a deal maker, that would be a deal that would be fairly obvious. I take some of your establishment people. I take Reince Priebus, who got me Sean Spicer and Mike Dubke and some of the other guys, and you help me get people that I want, like Steve Bannon. As my, you don't block that nomination. You help me, I help you. Okay, fair enough, right? Now, 7 months in, Donald Trump's like, no, you know what? I'm actually tired of you guys. I'm sick of you. I'm actually going to run things my way, and I'm actually going to get people who I like. And now one of the people that he likes is Anthony Scaramucci, who's actually said a lot of negative things about Trump before, and he ended up deleting those tweets. But nonetheless, he likes him because he's a lot like Trump. Okay? Yeah, look, you even go down to the hand motions. There's a video that compared Donald Trump's hand motions to Scaramucci's hand motions, and the resemblance was uncanny. But anyway, he likes Scaramucci. He likes, other people. Obviously, Jared Kushner, this member of his family, of course, son-in-law. So he wants certain people in certain positions. And now he's like, I want to get rid of the people that I don't want. And Priebus, I think he's been a target, and this is according to other leaks covered by Politico, of some of the inner White House drama, that he was not happy with Reince Priebus. So, it's maybe that Scaramucci's like, here's my chance. If he's a leaker, because I got information, if you're a leaker, Priebus, I'm coming for you. So maybe you should leave. Now, look, he's also forcing out, or trying to force out Jeff Sessions, who, ironically, Jeff Sessions was an enormous ally of Donald Trump. But, of course, he's upset because the one thing that he won't do, Sessions won't do, is defend him on Russia. Because he can't. He had to legally recuse himself from this. So he couldn't defend him on Russia. And he also wasn't going after the White House leaks. Or Clinton's emails. So he's like, what use do I have for you? Yeah, you're getting the establishment, the Republican agenda. I don't really care about that. I care about, are you defending me? Are you personally going to bat for me? Because if you're not, I ain't interested. Okay. Now, again, there's been huge staff shakeups, and we've covered a lot of that. You've got Mike Dubke that's gone. You've got Spicer that's gone. Again, Sessions. You've got a lot of people that have quit the administration or have been fired. And now here's Scaramucci saying, hey, Priebus, you better watch out. I'm coming for you. Those leaks, remember, those leaks were treasonous. Interesting. Now, later on, after Scaramucci deleted that tweet, he did tweet this in response to cover his ass. He said, wrong. And there was an article posted where they referenced that tweet. And he said, wrong. Tweet was a public notice to leakers that all senior administration officials are helping to end the illegal leaks. But a lot of these leaks, they weren't illegal. A lot of them were just incredibly embarrassing to Donald Trump. I mean, I guess the stuff on Syria, North Korea, and the stuff that he referenced in the clip, okay, yeah, those were confidential, illegal, and something would rightly get fired. I mean, if someone were in my administration, were leaking that kind of stuff to the public, I would have justification to fire them. Okay, but some of them, like Anthony Scaramucci's finances, were readily available public documents. And again, the leaking of the White House drama, that's not illegal. But that's the stuff that Donald Trump actually cares about. That's the stuff that, remember, in a previous article that we talked about, Trump laid into Paul Manafort over one of these leaks. Over where they had to, I believe they had to slip in his name to articles because he wasn't paying attention, because he would get bored. And he just had this enormous meltdown. Like, am I a baby to you, Paul? Am I a baby? Is that what you're saying I am? So, look, it was this epic meltdown. It was amazing. But that's the stuff he's concerned with. He doesn't care about any of the that intelligence stuff. He cares about the stuff that makes him look bad. And that's what he's going after. So, and look, what this shows me is that there is, again, this continuing war inside the White House. In fact, it's been there since day one. And it's all for power. Who can suck up to Donald Trump more to get more power, to get more responsibility? And here's the mooch making his power play in order to take it from Reince Priebus. Now, that's my read on the situation. I may not be right. I may not be wrong, but I also think that going so strongly against the leaks, that what Scaramucci is actually trying to do, going after that leaks, that's actually good for Scaramucci, because that's going to help him get on Trump's positive side. Because again, one of Trump's major complaints is they're not going after the leaks enough. They're not going after the leaks. So, and I think that this might actually be for Scaramucci trying to kill two birds with one stone. Get rid of the leaks, and also try to get rid of Reince Priebus in order to get more power. Again, that's my read of the situation. It is obviously complicated with all the internal divisions and infighting going on in the White House, but that's my read of the situation, and perhaps we'll see in the future whether or not I'm correct. Okay. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Long show today. There was so much stuff to cover. Hopefully you guys tune in for tomorrow. We'll have another great show right here, TYT Nation, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And also, if you like the show and you want to support us, go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/TYT Nation. And sign up to be a patron, And, of course, you'll get the full show. I know I had some internet problems at the beginning of the show, so if you missed anything, there will either be clips, well, there will both be clips up later, or if you don't want to wait, as soon as I put up the stream on our Patreon page. So sign up for that, and you can support independent progressive media. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.